Okay, so here's your prologue lecture, and the prologue is called Biology in the Molecular Perspective. So I'm just going to go through each section, pulling out what you need to remember. Please don't write this. You have this on your computer at home. Also, you can always talk to me too, you guys. If your computer's not working well or whatever, I could print this out for you. But I don't want to waste the paper unless you guys really need it. But anyway, okay, so we've talked about this when we did the reading log. So most influential science right now is the study of life. And why? Who cares? It's because you'll be able to make informed decisions, be able to make laws. You'll see a slide's going to come up on that later on things that we think are right or wrong, and then just helping with medical decisions as well. Okay, now your book is thematic many times. They don't necessarily present the information like a typical biology book, maybe going from the smallest to the largest things, atoms all the way up to animals. They still try and keep that sort of flow, but then they use themes, and the prologue even demonstrates this. So instead of, talking about how things can be treated in medicine, how things evolve, they give us an example. So they're talking to us about AIDS right on this section. And AIDS are very interesting. They're viruses. They're the little green guys right here. You can see how small they are compared to the bigger cells that they're kind of attacking basically here. Those are immunity cells like white blood cells. Anyway, so what's interesting with AIDS is, one, it's not alive as we've defined the characteristics of life. It does do things, some of the characteristics things though, like it does evolve, and it has genes. It either has DNA or RNA. AIDS happens to be a retrovirus, so it doesn't have DNA, it only has RNA. That's way too trivial for your test. But what I really want you guys to understand is that it does attack immunity cells, and then the treatment. So we try and find things that will kill it, or well, I shouldn't say kill it, it's not alive. Wreck its systems, I guess, break it apart, stop it from doing what it's doing, which is a parasite also. It's getting inside cells, using the other cells' machinery to reproduce. But anyway, long story short, it evolves so quickly that the ones that actually survive, still not a very good word, but they're there, have immunity to the drugs. So we have to keep changing our drug treatment to fight the AIDS viruses. And like other viruses also. You guys need to get a flu shot every year because that, also another virus, the flu virus, also is evolving and changing. It's pretty awesome actually when they're trying to make the virus. They have to predict what they think the flu virus will look like so that they give you a good vaccine. So it's crazy science just coming up with a flu vaccine. Bacteria is easier to fight with vaccines because the bacteria doesn't evolve as quickly as viruses. Okay, growth hormone. Again, another theme here. Here they're talking about cool biotechnology that is allowing us to get E. coli bacteria to make human a growth hormone for us. Why? Well, there are some people that have deficiencies, maybe they don't make their growth hormone correctly. So they're not growing right. They're not, healthy feeling. And so here's a great technology. However, it talks about this in your book, it's misused by a lot of athletes right now. Obviously, this is very controversial, right? Of using growth hormones or testosterone. Or before, what are they called? The anabolic steroids? I don't know if I'm saying the word exactly right. Those steroids are growth hormones from cattle and horses that people felt inclined that they needed to put in their body to become bigger and stronger for all different pressures that some people feel that society, I guess, puts on them, or for them to compete or whatnot. Very controversial and pretty sad, in my opinion, what it's grown to. But again, we're humans. We're trying to be the best, I guess. So, you guys have to decide what's wrong or right. Okay, I also want to point out here, proteins Life is built of proteins, and shape is very important. It's one of your big themes, form to function. If it loses its shape, that's called denatured. You don't need it for this test right now, but later. And it won't work anymore. So again, form and function, completely linked in chemistry to life is what we're talking about. Then we moved on to ethics. And ethics on the morals of society. And I put a little silly comic here. 34% cut in our corporate ethics should return us to profitability. It's the same thing though, and scientists and doctors, they're just people too. They're trying to make money also, so sometimes our wants and desires wreck maybe what's right, with the morals and things. But science, I'm sorry, I meant to fix that. Got a little bit cut off with my photo. So, but what it's saying is science is very helpful in, telling us what we can do, and really even predicting possible outcomes so we can make those informed decisions. However, science is not, it's not based on morals or what society thinks is wrong or right. It's just simple science. And then it's up to society to decide what we want to use that science teaches us or science reveals for us. Now, and it gets to, and sometimes we lose meaning with our government, but down here is all laws and our regulations are supposed to be representing our values. Now, if society changes though, sometimes we need to change our laws, and we don't agree with that anymore, or we do. Okay, and then just basics problem solving. So you guys are pretty good at solving problems, and we need to continue doing that. But again, you need to combine your previous knowledge, okay? And then you add the new observations. And I want to see you guys doing this all year. When there's blank questions, analysis questions, for example, you're not doing it just to fill up a couple lines. You're trying to process, you're trying to problem solve even the thinking that's involved on responding to some of my prompts for you guys. And collecting new observations. You'll see that. I'm going to give you guys back your summer reading assignments next class with some feedback and stuff. And many times I asked you guys, to compare something, but you kind of just guessed at it. You didn't go find out what's already known. So you've got to do some research also. I want you guys to push it, not just regurgitate, spit out what you already know on the piece of paper for me. Okay, so then data, just in general here, is what we're going to use to evaluate the problem and, come up with a plan, or maybe that's the initial part. We come up with a plan to collect the data, and then we're going to have to evaluate. Data, so is plural. A lot of people think that it's singular. That's a data point. It's really a datum point if you want to be correct about it. But you don't really hear that very often. But data is plural. Okay, then, here's still with our themes. Let's talk a little bit about evolution to present the idea of theories, what theories are. So right away, your definition of evolution from your book, organisms of the past have risen to the organisms of today, basically. And really important, the organisms do change over time. Populations change, not individuals. And I'll make more sense in a minute. You make sure you get your definition of theory from your book, so I left a little dash there. Now, Lamarck. Has anybody heard of Lamarck? Baptiste Lamarck. He's from France. He lived before, even there's a little bit of overlap between him and Darwin. Well, he came up with the idea of evolution, actually. But the process of explaining that things change, these first two bullets, he didn't explain as well. He didn't use the data as well as Darwin did. He called his acquired characteristics. He also predicted that they're inherited. His main flaw, though, in his thinking was that he thought individuals could evolve. And there's even some funny, interesting things. They seem funny to us now, but back then, he's just trying to explain life. and we didn't know things changed. Even then, we barely understood about fossils, and we had barely found any fossils. So it's easy to laugh at his ideas, but one of the main points of sharing him is for you to realize that science is continually, new information is being added on as we go. So things are never constant in science. Don't forget to make sure you know the definition of hypothesis, and then remember prediction is if and then Darwin. So same theory ideas up here, but he collected more data, and real importantly, he went beyond just studying life. So who's he talking to now when he learns this? The geologists, right? So one of Darwin's things that he pulled together in his theory was that the Earth was old, and that these fossils, were living at one time and came before us. But basically, we needed gradual changes to occur on Earth, and they continue to. And so then he explained it through what he called natural selection, which is survival and reproduction of an organism that is best suited to the environment. And for the ability of an organism to survive and reproduce, what's that a measurement of? What did I write up there? What's in the quotes? Fitness, right? Fitness. I'm not talking about going to the gym, just talking about the ability to survive and then reproduce. Don't forget define species, adaptations, variation. I went ahead and put a picture of Darwin's finches, and this is an example of speciation through natural selection. So here's just the head feature of this finch from Ecuador, came from the mainland, and then these, how many do I have on this one? There's more than 5, but for this picture, they're on different islands, isolated in the Galapagos Islands, and mutations occurred, changes, new traits and changes happen over time, and the ones best suited were the ones that were able to eat, in this case, survive, and then reproduce. But it took thousands and thousands of years, okay, tons of generations for the finches to evolve. So again, the D, Darwin versus Lamarck, different predictions from same observations, even their theory, I guess you could say. But the word theory is kind of used, I think, too freely. A theory is something that has tons and tons of evidence, and from different disciplines in science, so not just in one discipline. So the geologists are saying, no, yeah, that age of the Earth seems okay, and then the radiologists with carbon dating say, no, that age seems good, and then Darwin's going, really, that age seems good, because that would explain how my finches could change, because I need a long time period. So they're all building on each other. Okay, the last slide here is scientific perspectives. On page 14, I'll show it to you, but I'm going to turn this off in a second, and the role of biologists. I'm hoping you actually put it in your reading log. It was the most important things in that section. And I want to turn this off.